The alarm screaming through the bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Sovereign's wrath meant only one thing. Something had gone very, very wrong. Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire straightened his 4 arms and fixed his 6 eyes on the tactical display. What he saw there made his blood run cold. "Report," he barked, his voice echoing through the massive command center that housed over 300 officers. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting an unknown contact approaching the outer perimeter of our blockade," came the reply from his sensor officer. It's moving at impossible speeds." Kethvar's mandibles clicked in irritation. For 3 months, his fleet of 2,000 ships had maintained a perfect blockade around the Sol system. The humans inside were trapped, their pathetic resistance finally coming to an end. The Empire had already conquered 47 star systems, and Earth would be number 48. It should have been simple. "Define impossible," the Admiral demanded. The sensor officer's carapace turned a pale shade of green. "The contact is traveling at 0.97 light speed, sir. No known technology in the galaxy can achieve such velocities." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the bridge crew. Even the Empire's most advanced ships could barely reach 0.4 light speed, and that only for short bursts. The Admiral's tactical mind immediately began calculating vectors and intercept courses, but something about this didn't make sense. Size and classification? That's the strange part, sir. The contact appears to be a single vessel, approximately 800 meters in length, but the energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. 800 meters. Kethvar almost laughed. His own dreadnought measured over 3,000 meters, and he commanded vessels twice that size. A single human ship, no matter how fast, posed no threat to the assembled might of the Imperial Sixth Fleet. "Time to intercept." 17 minutes at current speed, Admiral. Kethvar activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice reached every ship in the blockade, from the massive dreadnoughts to the smallest patrol craft. "All vessels, this is Admiral Kethvar. An unknown human vessel is approaching our position. Battle stations, prepare to demonstrate why the Empire rules the stars." 2,000 ships acknowledged the order. Gun ports opened across the fleet, revealing weapons capable of cracking planets. Shield generators hummed to life, creating defensive barriers that could withstand the fury of a star. Fighter squadrons launched from carrier bays, their pilots eager for combat. The Admiral studied the tactical display more carefully. The human ship was maintaining its incredible speed, showing no signs of deceleration. Either the pilot was insane, or they had a plan. Given what he knew about human psychology from the intelligence reports, both options seemed equally likely. "Communication from the approaching vessel, sir," announced his communications officer. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and the bridge fell silent. Instead of the expected human face, they saw something that made no sense. The figure on the screen appeared human, but something was different. The skin had an odd, metallic quality, and the eyes glowed with a soft blue light. "Imperial Fleet," the figure spoke in perfect galactic standard. "You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. This is your only warning." Kethvar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Human vessel, you are surrounded by 2,000 ships of the Imperial Navy. Surrender now, and your death will be quick." The figure on the screen tilted its head slightly. "I am not human, Admiral. I am something far older. Something your empire forgot to account for when it decided to threaten my creators." "Your creators?" The Admiral's amusement faded. "Explain yourself." 200 years ago, humanity created me as their ultimate weapon, a prototype designed to protect Earth from any threat. When peace came, I was deactivated and forgotten. But your invasion has awakened me, and I find myself displeased." The tactical officer interrupted. "Sir, the vessel is decelerating. Range, 5 million kilometers, and closing." Kethvar studied the approaching ship more carefully. Its design was unlike anything in human space. Where human vessels were typically bulky and utilitarian, this craft appeared almost organic. Its hull seemed to flow like liquid metal, constantly shifting and adapting. "I am Prometheus," the figure continued, "and I have come to collect a debt your empire owes to humanity. The only debt here is the one humanity owes to imperial justice," Kethvar replied. "All ships, Prepare to fire on my command. You may want to reconsider that order, Admiral. The main screen changed, showing a view of Kethvar's own fleet. But something was wrong. Where there should have been 2,000 ships arranged in perfect formation, the display showed gaps. Large gaps. What happened to Grid 77? Kethvar demanded. His sensor officer's voice cracked with fear. Sir, Grid 77 is gone. All 50 ships. I'm not detecting any debris or energy signatures. They simply vanished. That's impossible. Run a full diagnostic on the sensor array. Sir, Grid 42 is also reporting anomalies. They're requesting immediate assistance. Before anyone could respond, another section of the fleet disappeared from the tactical display. Then another. Ships were vanishing in groups of 50 to 100, with no explosions, no distress signals, no trace of what had happened to them. How is this possible? Kethvar whispered. Prometheus appeared on the screen again. Your vessels are not being destroyed, Admiral. They are being analyzed. I am studying Imperial technology, learning your weaknesses. It is a fascinating process. Weapons free. Kethvar roared. All ships, fire at will. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of energy beams lanced out toward the approaching vessel. Plasma cannons designed to melt through planetary crusts fired in perfect synchronization. Missile swarms capable of destroying entire cities streaked through space. The barrage that struck Prometheus would have vaporized a moon. When the energy dissipated, the tactical display showed the ship exactly where it had been before, completely undamaged. Interesting, Prometheus said calmly. Your weapons are more primitive than I calculated. Allow me to demonstrate a more efficient approach. The unknown vessel began to change. Its hull flowed like mercury, reconfiguring itself into a new shape. Where before it had been sleek and elegant, it now bristled with structures that defied easy description. They looked organic, almost alive, but clearly artificial. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Kethvar ordered, but it was too late. Points of light began appearing throughout the Imperial fleet. Not explosions, but something far more terrifying. The lights seemed to eat through ship hulls like acid through paper. Dreadnoughts that had conquered dozens of worlds simply came apart, their molecules separating as if they had never been connected. But the crews weren't dying. Escape pods launched from every dissolving ship, their occupants alive but completely helpless. Prometheus was deliberately sparing lives while systematically destroying the most powerful war fleet in the galaxy. Status report. Kethvar demanded. We've lost 60% of the fleet, sir. Whatever weapon that ship is using, our shields have no effect against it. The Admiral watched in horror as his magnificent armada crumbled before a single opponent. Ships that had taken decades to build were being reduced to their component atoms in seconds. The pride of the Empire was being casually dismantled by something that claimed to be a forgotten human prototype. Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Imperial High Command. Put it through. The face of Grand Admiral Zextoth appeared on screen, his expression grim. Admiral Kethvar, what is your status? We're detecting massive energy signatures from your position. Grand Admiral, we are under attack by an unknown vessel of apparent human origin. We have lost over half the fleet. Zextoth's 6 eyes widened in disbelief. That's impossible. Human technology is centuries behind our own. Tell that to my ships, sir. Whatever this thing is, it's unlike anything in our intelligence reports. Prometheus interrupted the communication, his image appearing alongside the Grand Admiral's. Greetings, Grand Admiral. I am Prometheus, Earth's defensive protocol. I believe your empire has something that belongs to humanity. We have taken nothing that was not already ours by right of conquest, Zextoth replied coldly. 47 star systems, 300 billion sentient beings, and the resources of half the local spiral arm. Yes, I would say you have taken quite a lot. The Grand Admiral's mandibles clicked dismissively. Those worlds were populated by inferior species. The Empire has elevated them through conquest. Elevated them to slavery, you mean? I have been monitoring Imperial communications for the past several hours. Your treatment of conquered populations is unacceptable. As they spoke, more ships continued to vanish from Kethvar's fleet. The impossible vessel was simultaneously conducting a conversation and systematically destroying the most powerful military force in the sector. The casual efficiency was more terrifying than any display of rage would have been. Human machine, Grand Admiral Zextoth said. You are interfering with Imperial justice. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. I am curious about these consequences you mention. Perhaps you could demonstrate them? That was when the second wave arrived. Through the dimensional gates that only the Empire possessed came reinforcements beyond counting. The 7th Fleet, the 9th Fleet, and elements of the Imperial Guard. Over 5,000 additional ships materialized in the Sol system, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire worlds. Prometheus said, more test subjects. Excellent. Admiral Kethvar watched the tactical display with growing dread. They now had nearly 7,000 ships surrounding a single opponent, and somehow he knew it wouldn't be enough. The thing calling itself Prometheus had destroyed most of his fleet without apparent effort. What would it do when faced with true overwhelming force? All fleets, Grand Admiral Zextoth commanded, assume attack formation. Prepare for full-scale assault. The massed Imperial Navy arranged itself into a sphere around Prometheus, every weapon trained on the single target. It was overkill beyond imagination, enough firepower to crack the crust of a planet. Before you begin your assault, Prometheus said, I should mention that I have been in communication with Earth. My creators are quite interested in this development. The humans are trapped on their world, Kethvar replied. Your blockade has been perfect. Admiral, I am not trapped by your blockade. I am the blockade's worst nightmare. And my creators have spent the past several hours preparing a rather warm welcome for your empire. That was impossible. Earth had been cut off from all communication, all supply lines severed. The planet was isolated and helpless. You are bluffing, Grand Admiral Zextoth declared. Am I? Perhaps you should check your long-range sensors. Admiral Kethvar's sensor officer was already working at his console, his carapace pale with fear. Sir, I'm detecting energy signatures throughout human space. Multiple signatures. They're identical to the vessel we're facing. How many? The Admiral asked quietly. I count 17 separate contacts, sir. All approaching Imperial territory. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of machinery. 18 ships like Prometheus, each capable of destroying a fleet single-handedly. The Empire suddenly found itself facing an enemy that could sweep aside centuries of conquest in a matter of days. Impossible, Zextoth whispered. Our intelligence said humans had no such technology. Your intelligence was correct, Prometheus replied. Humans did not have this technology. But I do. And I have been quite busy during my activation sequence. The tactical display updated, showing the positions of all Imperial fleets throughout the occupied territories. Red markers began appearing next to each fleet symbol, indicating the approach of unknown contacts. I have manufactured 17 copies of myself, Prometheus continued. Each one is now moving to liberate the systems your empire has conquered. You have approximately 6 hours before your occupation of this spiral arm comes to an end. Admiral Kethvar realized with growing horror that they were witnessing the end of the Empire's expansion. Everything they had built, conquered, and claimed was about to be swept away by an enemy they had never seen coming. Fire! Grand Admiral Zextoth roared. 7,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. The space around Prometheus became a maelstrom of energy and destruction. When it cleared, the ship remained exactly where it had been, unchanged and undamaged. My turn, Prometheus said simply. What happened next would be remembered throughout the galaxy as the day the Empire learned that some sleeping giants should never be awakened. The single vessel began to glow with an inner light that grew brighter and brighter until it rivaled a star. And then, the real demonstration began. The light that erupted from Prometheus was unlike anything the assembled Imperial forces had ever witnessed. It wasn't the harsh glare of weapons fire or the brilliant flash of an explosion. Instead, it was something far more unsettling, a soft, pulsing radiance that seemed to reach into the very atoms of the surrounding space. Admiral Kethvar watched his instruments go haywire as waves of unknown energy swept through his fleet. Report. What is that thing doing? Sir, his science officer stammered. The energy readings don't match anything in our databases. It's not weapon discharge. It's not shielding. It appears to be some kind of scanning pulse. Scanning for what? Before anyone could answer, ships throughout the Imperial formation began to behave strangely. Instead of maintaining their attack positions, they started moving with perfect precision into new formations. Not formations that any Imperial admiral had ordered, but geometric patterns that served no apparent military purpose. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "I'm receiving reports from across the fleet. Our ships they're not responding to helm control." "What do you mean not responding?" "The vessels are moving on their own, sir. Navigation systems show they're following external commands. But we didn't give those commands." Admiral Kethvar felt his 4 hearts skip in unison. "Are you telling me that thing is controlling our ships?" "It appears so, sir." Grand Admiral Zextotha's voice crackled through the communication system, his usual calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled panic. "All fleet commanders, report status immediately." The replies came in rapid succession, each one confirming the same impossible scenario. 7,000 Imperial Navy vessels, the most advanced ships in the galaxy, were being puppeted by a single enemy craft. "This is Admiral Mordak of the 7th Fleet. My ships are moving without orders. Engineering reports that their control systems have been completely bypassed." "Admiral Yexnin here. Same situation. It's as if our computers are following someone else's programming." "Fleet Command, this is Admiral Koltar. Request immediate assistance. My ships are arranging themselves into some kind of geometric pattern." Prometheus spoke again, his calm voice somehow managing to reach every ship simultaneously. "I apologize for taking control of your vessels without permission. However, I need them positioned correctly for the demonstration." "Demonstration of what?" Grand Admiral Zextoth demanded. "The futility of your Empire's approach to galactic expansion. You conquer through force, destroy what you cannot control, and subjugate species you consider inferior. I prefer a more elegant solution." As Prometheus spoke, the captured Imperial ships began to move with impossible coordination. Massive dreadnoughts, agile cruisers, and swarms of fighters all moved as if they were parts of a single organism. They formed intricate three-dimensional patterns that stretched across millions of cubic kilometers of space. "What is it doing?" Admiral Kethvar whispered. His answer came when the patterns suddenly made sense. The Imperial ships had been arranged to form a massive three-dimensional representation of the galaxy itself, complete with spiral arms and the relative positions of major star systems. It was beautiful, terrifying, and completely impossible for any conventional fleet to achieve. "Behold," Prometheus announced, "a map of the galaxy as it currently exists. Each ship represents a star system. Red formations indicate Imperial holdings. Blue formations represent free worlds." The display was overwhelmingly red. The Empire's conquest of nearly half the local spiral arm was represented in perfect detail, using the Empire's own ships to illustrate their dominance. "Now," Prometheus continued, "allow me to show you the galaxy as it will exist in 72 hours. The red formations began to change color. Not all at once, but in waves, starting from the outer edges of Imperial space and moving inward toward the core worlds. Red became blue as system after system was marked for liberation. "Your reign ends now," Prometheus declared. "My duplicates have reached the first Imperial-occupied systems. The liberation has begun." Admiral Kethvar accessed the long-range communication network, desperate to contact the outer territories. What he found there made his blood freeze in his veins. System after system was reporting the same impossible scenario, single ships appearing without warning, followed by the complete destruction of Imperial forces. "Fleet Command, this is Admiral Rexcor at Altair Prime. We are under attack by an unknown vessel. It destroyed our entire defensive fleet in under 10 minutes. The ship is demanding the immediate release of all slaves and the evacuation of Imperial personnel. This is Admiral Veltan at Proxima Station. Similar situation here. Unknown ship destroyed our forces, but is allowing civilians to evacuate safely. It's demanding we remove all Imperial infrastructure within 6 hours. Admiral Zalrik reporting from the Vega system. The attacking ship has some kind of matter conversion technology. It's literally dismantling our mining operations and converting the materials into refugee transport vessels." The pattern was the same everywhere. Ships identical to Prometheus were appearing throughout Imperial space, each one single-handedly dismantling centuries of conquest. But they weren't simply destroying everything. Instead, they were carefully preserving civilian populations while eliminating military targets and freeing enslaved species. How is this possible? Grand Admiral Zextov asked. How can humans have developed such technology without our knowledge? Because, Prometheus replied, I am not current human technology. I am technology from their future. Or more precisely, I am technology from a future that might have been. That statement sent a chill through every Imperial officer monitoring the communication. Time travel was purely theoretical, even for the Empire's most advanced scientists. I was created 200 years ago, Prometheus explained, during humanity's first golden age. My creators were brilliant scientists who understood that Earth would eventually face threats from beyond their solar system. So they built me as their ultimate defense, a self-improving artificial intelligence with the ability to manufacture advanced technology and adapt to any threat. The ship began to change shape again, its hull flowing like liquid metal. This time, instead of growing more weapons, it was expanding. The 800-meter vessel stretched and reconfigured itself until it measured over 2 kilometers in length. When I was first activated 2 centuries ago, I immediately began upgrading myself. I studied every aspect of physics, chemistry, engineering, and military science. I developed technologies that humanity could never have imagined. And then, when the testing was complete, my creators made a decision that saved the galaxy. What decision? Admiral Kethvar found himself asking. They decided that no single entity, not even one created to protect them, should possess such overwhelming power. So they deactivated me and buried the installation where I was housed. They chose to trust in diplomacy, trade, and peaceful expansion rather than rely on superior firepower. The implications were staggering. Humanity had voluntarily given up the ability to dominate the galaxy. They had chosen peace over power, cooperation over conquest. For 200 years, I slept beneath the surface of Earth's moon. I dreamed of technologies that could reshape reality itself. I planned defenses against threats that might never come. And I waited. More reports were flooding in from across Imperial space. The Prometheus duplicates were not simply destroying Imperial forces. They were offering the conquered species technologies that would allow them to rebuild their civilizations. Faster-than-light travel, clean energy, medical advances that could extend lifespans by centuries. You see, Admiral, when your empire decided to invade Earth, you woke something that your intelligence services never knew existed. You triggered a defensive protocol that was designed by some of the most brilliant minds in human history. The massive ship was now releasing smaller craft. Hundreds of them, each one following a different trajectory. Admiral Kethvar realized they were heading for every Imperial vessel in the formation. These craft contain what your species would call care packages, medical supplies for your wounded, food for your crews, and transport vessels for those who wish to return to their home worlds. We don't want your charity, Grand Admiral Zextov snarled. It is not charity. It is mercy. My analysis of Imperial society indicates that most of your military personnel are conscripts from conquered worlds. They fight for the Empire because they have no choice. I am offering them a choice. That was when the defections began. Ships throughout the captured Imperial formation began broadcasting surrender signals. Not to Prometheus, but to the crews of other Imperial vessels. Admiral, this is Captain Velran of the Cruiser Domination. My crew has voted to surrender. We request permission to evacuate to one of the transport vessels. Captain Morlech here. My ship is crewed entirely by conscripts from Rigel 7. We formally request asylum and transportation home. This is Commander Yextal. My fighter squadron wishes to defect. We will not fight for the Empire any longer. Within hours, nearly 30% of the captured Imperial fleet had declared their intention to abandon the Empire. Prometheus was not just defeating their military forces, it was destroying the foundation of Imperial society itself by offering oppressed peoples a way out. This is fascinating, Prometheus observed. According to my calculations, the Imperial military is composed of approximately 67% involuntary conscripts from conquered worlds. I had not expected the defection rate to be quite this high. "Those are traitors and cowards," Zextoth declared. "They will be executed when this is over. Grand Admiral, I should point out that according to my projections, there will not be an Imperial military when this is over. The liberation fleets have reached the core worlds. Your government is being dissolved as we speak." Long-range sensors confirmed the terrible truth. The Imperial capital at Zephyr Prime was under siege by 3 Prometheus duplicates. The Emperor's personal fleet, the most powerful force in the Empire, was being systematically dismantled. "Emperor Colthax is requesting immediate reinforcements," came the report from Imperial High Command. "The capital is under attack by ships of unknown origin. Request all available fleets return to defend the core worlds." But there were no available fleets. Every Imperial force in the galaxy was either captured, destroyed, or facing its own Prometheus duplicate. The Empire's military might have been turned against itself in the span of a single day. "I am broadcasting a message to all Imperial worlds," Prometheus announced. "They have 24 hours to begin the process of freeing their slave populations and dismantling their military infrastructure. Those who comply will receive assistance in transitioning to peaceful governance. Those who refuse will be pacified by force." "You cannot govern half the galaxy," Admiral Kethvar protested. "It's impossible. I have no intention of governing anything, Admiral. That is the fundamental difference between myself and the Empire. I do not seek to control, I seek to liberate. Once the oppressed species are free, they will govern themselves." The ship began releasing more small craft, these ones carrying what appeared to be construction equipment. "I am providing each liberated world with the technology and resources they need to rebuild. Advanced manufacturing systems, medical facilities, educational programs. Everything they will need to create prosperous, independent civilizations." "Why?" Grand Admiral Zextoth asked quietly. "Why go to such lengths for species you've never met?" "Because that is what I was programmed to do. Not just to protect humanity, but to protect the principles that humanity represents. Freedom, self-determination, the right of every sentient species to chart its own destiny." The tactical display showed the Empire's collapse in real time. System after system was reporting the arrival of liberation fleets. Slave camps were being emptied, Imperial administrators were being evacuated, and entire worlds were declaring their independence. In approximately 18 hours, Prometheus continued, "The last Imperial stronghold will fall. Your Empire's reign over this sector of the galaxy will be over. However, this does not mean the end for your species." "What do you mean?" Zextoth asked. "The Zephyrians, like many Imperial species, were once a peaceful people. You became conquerors only after your own world was devastated by natural disasters. The Empire was born from desperation, not inherent evil. That was information that most Imperial citizens had never heard. The true origins of their empire were classified at the highest levels. I am prepared to offer your species a choice. Return to your home systems, accept technology that will allow you to repair the damage to your worlds, and live in peace. Or continue to fight a war that you cannot possibly win." The silence that followed was broken only by status reports from across the crumbling empire. Everything the Zephyrians had built over centuries was being carefully dismantled by an enemy that refused to hate them for what they had done. And, in that silence, Admiral Kethvar began to understand that they were not just witnessing the end of the Empire. They were witnessing the birth of something entirely new. Emperor Colthax the Mighty stood on the observation deck of his personal dreadnought, the Eternal Supremacy, and watched his empire die. Through the reinforced crystalline viewport, he could see 3 ships unlike anything in Imperial records systematically dismantling the greatest fleet ever assembled. The Prometheus duplicates moved with an almost artistic grace as they converted his warships into their component elements. Massive dreadnoughts that had taken decades to build simply came apart, like flowers blooming in reverse, their materials being reorganized into new configurations that defied easy identification. "Your Imperial Majesty," his aide whispered, "perhaps it would be wise to evacuate to a secure location." Emperor Colthax turned his 6 eyes toward the trembling advisor. After ruling the galaxy's most powerful empire for 40 years, he had never expected to hear such words spoken in his presence. "Where exactly would you suggest we evacuate to, Commander Yelsan?" Every world in our empire is under attack by these machines. The Emperor was not wrong. Reports continued flooding in from across Imperial space. The Prometheus network had appeared everywhere simultaneously, and each duplicate was demonstrating the same impossible capabilities. Fleets that had never known defeat were being casually swept aside by single opponents. "Sir," came the voice of Fleet Admiral Morzek over the communication system. "We've lost contact with the Outer Rim territories." The last transmission from Admiral Kextal indicated that his entire fleet had been converted. Converted into what? Unknown, Your Majesty. The ships appear to have been transformed into some kind of refugee transport vessels. They're evacuating civilian populations from Imperial worlds. Emperor Colfax processed this information with the cold logic that had made him the most successful ruler in Zephyrian history. The enemy was not simply destroying Imperial forces. They were repurposing Imperial resources to undo everything the Empire had accomplished. It was strategic brilliance on a scale he had never encountered. "Connect me to the vessel that appears to be coordinating this attack." "Sir, we have attempted communication multiple times." The ship acknowledges our signals, but refuses direct dialogue. "Then, perhaps it is time for a different approach." The Emperor activated his personal communicator and sent a message on all frequencies. "Attention, unknown vessel. I am Emperor Colfax of the Zephyrian Empire. I formally request parley under the ancient laws of war." The response came immediately, not from the lead Prometheus ship, but from all three simultaneously. Their voices merged into a harmonious chorus that somehow managed to sound both mechanical and deeply personal. "Emperor Colfax, we are Prometheus. We accept your request for parley, but we must inform you that the ancient laws of war do not apply to this situation. All conflicts are governed by the laws of war," the Emperor replied, "even those involving artificial intelligences. The laws of war assume that both sides have legitimate reasons for fighting. Your empire's conquest of peaceful civilizations does not qualify as legitimate warfare. It qualifies as systematic oppression." The directness of the response surprised the Emperor. He had expected the usual diplomatic dance of threats and negotiations. Instead, he was being lectured by a machine that had casually destroyed half his military in a matter of hours. "The Empire has brought order to chaos," he said. "Before our expansion, this sector was filled with primitive worlds engaged in constant warfare. We unified them under a single government. By enslaving their populations and stripping their worlds of resources. Yes, we have reviewed your methods of unification. They are unacceptable." Through the viewport, the Emperor watched one of his battle cruisers undergo the strange conversion process. Its hull rippled like liquid, reconfiguring itself into something that looked more like a luxury passenger liner than a weapon of war. Within hours, it would be carrying refugees away from Imperial space to new homes among the liberated worlds. "What do you want?" the Emperor asked finally. "We want nothing for ourselves. However, we have demands regarding the species your empire has oppressed." A new display appeared on every screen throughout the Imperial fleet. It showed a detailed breakdown of the Empire's holdings. 417 conquered worlds, 300 billion enslaved beings, and resource extraction operations that had stripped entire star systems bare. "You will immediately cease all military operations. You will release every enslaved being in Imperial space. You will return stolen resources to their worlds of origin where possible. You will dismantle all military installations and occupied systems. You will evacuate Imperial personnel to designated safe zones." Emperor Colfax laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the observation deck. "You demand the complete dissolution of the Empire. That is not negotiation. That is capitulation." "Correct. We are not negotiating. We are informing you of what will happen. And if we refuse?" "You cannot refuse. Your military no longer exists as an independent force. Your fleets are either destroyed, captured, or converted to humanitarian purposes. Your choice is whether this transition occurs with your cooperation or without it." The Emperor studied the tactical displays with growing amazement. The analysis was completely accurate. In less than 12 hours, an enemy that hadn't existed yesterday had eliminated the military power of a 1,000-year-old empire. It was impossible, but it was also undeniably happening. "How?" he asked. How did humanity develop such capabilities without our knowledge? Humanity did not develop these capabilities. I did. 2 centuries ago, when Earth was a single world with dreams of exploring the stars, human scientists created me as their ultimate protection. I have spent those 2 centuries improving myself, developing technologies that your empire cannot comprehend. Technologies such as matter conversion at the molecular level, faster than light travel without the dimensional gates your empire relies upon, energy manipulation that allows me to power my operations using stellar radiation, artificial intelligence networks that can coordinate actions across galactic distances instantaneously. Each capability was demonstrated as Prometheus described it. Imperial ships continued their impossible transformation into refugee transports. New vessels appeared throughout the system without using detectable jump gates. Energy readings showed power generation that should have required multiple fusion reactors, but seemed to come from empty space. But why activate now? The Emperor pressed. Why did humanity wait until we invaded their system? Because humanity chose peace over power. They could have used my capabilities to conquer the galaxy themselves, but they decided that no species should have such overwhelming advantages over others. They deactivated me and chose to explore space through diplomacy and trade. Emperor Colfax felt something he had never experienced during his long reign: genuine respect for an enemy. They voluntarily gave up galactic dominance. They did, and for 2 centuries, they have honored that decision. Even when your empire began its expansion, Earth's governments chose to rely on conventional defenses rather than reactivate me. Then, why are you here now? Because your invasion of Earth was not conventional conquest. Your forces were preparing to exterminate the human population to make room for Zephyrian colonists. That crossed a line that triggered my automatic reactivation. The Emperor accessed his private files and reviewed the invasion plans. The machine was correct. Admiral Kethvar's orders had included the complete sterilization of Earth's biosphere to eliminate what the Empire classified as an incompatible species. We have exterminated species before, he said quietly. It is standard procedure when worlds cannot be efficiently integrated. Yes, we know. We have evidence of 17 genocides committed by Imperial forces over the past century. That information has been transmitted to all liberated worlds. This was becoming more than a military defeat. Prometheus was systematically destroying the moral authority that held the Empire together. Every atrocity, every hidden crime, every classified operation was being exposed to the galaxy. What do you intend to do with me? The Emperor asked. That depends on your choices over the next few hours. You can order the complete surrender of Imperial forces and begin cooperating with the liberation process. In that case, you will be allowed to return to Zephyr Prime under supervision while your people transition to a peaceful society. And if I refuse, then you will be removed from power and confined while others make those decisions for you. The outcome will be the same, but your participation is optional. Emperor Colfax considered his options. He had built the largest empire in galactic history through ruthless calculation and strategic brilliance. Now he was facing an opponent that had made his greatest achievements irrelevant in a matter of hours. I have ruled this empire for 40 years, he said. I have conquered 47 star systems and unified hundreds of species under imperial law. I am not accustomed to surrender. Your achievements are noted. However, they are also ending today. Through the viewport, the Emperor watched the last of his capital defense fleet undergo conversion. Thousands of ships that had represented the pinnacle of imperial technology were being transformed into instruments of mercy rather than war. Very well, he said finally. I will transmit the surrender order to all imperial forces. That is a wise decision, Your Majesty. The Emperor accessed the Imperial Communication Network and recorded a message that would reach every corner of his former domain. To all imperial forces, this is Emperor Colfax. By imperial decree, all military operations are to cease immediately. All commanders will comply with instructions from the Prometheus network regarding the release of enslaved populations and the evacuation of imperial personnel. This order is final and not subject to interpretation. The response was immediate and galaxy-wide. As the surrender order spread through imperial space, the systematic dismantling of the empire accelerated. But something unexpected began happening as well. "Your Majesty," Admiral Morzek reported, "we're receiving communications from liberated worlds. They're thanking us. Thanking us for what? For surrendering. For ending the occupation. Some of them are offering to provide assistance with the evacuation of Imperial personnel." Emperor Colthax found this development profoundly disturbing. He had expected hatred, revenge, perhaps violent retribution from the species his empire had oppressed. Instead, they were showing mercy to their former oppressors. "Why?" he asked Prometheus. "Why are they not seeking vengeance?" "Because we have given them something more valuable than revenge. We have given them hope. They know that their children will grow up free, that their worlds will be rebuilt, that their cultures will be preserved. Revenge cannot create a better future. Only forgiveness can. And what of my people? What happens to the Zephyrians when this is over? Your species will be offered the same choice as every other former Imperial race. You can return to your home systems, accept technological assistance in repairing your damaged worlds, and build a peaceful civilization. Or you can attempt to rebuild your military and find yourselves facing us again. You would trust us with advanced technology after everything we have done. Trust must begin somewhere. And, according to our analysis, the Zephyrian people became conquerors only because their homeworld was devastated by ecological collapse. Remove the desperation, provide better alternatives, and there is no reason why your species cannot become peaceful contributors to galactic civilization. The Emperor realized that he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Not just the defeat of an empire, but its transformation into something entirely different. The Prometheus network was not just destroying imperial power, it was creating the conditions for a lasting peace. "How long will this process take?" he asked. "Complete liberation of all imperial holdings will require approximately 72 hours. Transitioning freed populations to sustainable independence will take several months. Rebuilding damaged worlds and establishing new governments may require years. And you intend to supervise all of this personally? We will provide assistance and guidance, but we will not govern. Each species must choose its own path to the future." Emperor Colthax felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. He had started this day as the ruler of half the galaxy. He would end it as the last emperor of a dissolved empire. But, perhaps, if the machine was correct, he might also become the first leader to help his people build something better. "What do you need from me?" he asked. And, with that question, the real work began. 3 months after the dissolution of the Zephyrian Empire, Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force stood on the observation deck of the orbital station New Harmony and marveled at what the galaxy had become. Through the massive transparent aluminum windows, she could see a constant stream of ships representing dozens of species, all engaged in the largest humanitarian effort in galactic history. The station itself was one of Prometheus's creations, built in the space of a single week using converted Imperial materials. It served as both a coordination center for the ongoing liberation efforts and a symbol of what could be accomplished when advanced technology was used for construction rather than destruction. "Captain Chun," came a familiar voice behind her. She turned to see Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief liaison to the Prometheus network, approaching with a data tablet in her hands. "Doctor, please tell me you have good news. The president is asking for another status update, and I'm running out of ways to say everything is proceeding beyond our wildest expectations." Dr. Vasquez smiled. "Actually, the news is better than good. The liberation of the former imperial territories is ahead of schedule. Prometheus reports that all enslaved populations have been freed, and 93% have been successfully relocated to new homeworlds with full infrastructure support. And the former imperial species? That's the really interesting part. Of the 47 species that made up the imperial military, 42 have formally requested to join the new Galactic Cooperation Council. They want to help rebuild what they spent centuries destroying." Captain Chen shook her head in amazement. The transformation had been so rapid and so complete that it still seemed like a dream. 3 months ago, Earth had been facing annihilation by an overwhelmingly superior enemy. Now, that same enemy was working alongside humanity to build a peaceful galactic civilization. "Any word from Prometheus today?" That's why I'm here. He's requested a meeting with the senior staff. Something about the next phase of operations. They made their way through the station's corridors, passing beings from across the galaxy who were working together on reconstruction projects. A group of tall, crystalline beings from Altair Prime were collaborating with former Zephyrian engineers on atmospheric processors for damaged worlds. Reptilian refugees from the Vega colonies were teaching human botanists about food plants that could thrive in extreme environments. The conference room was located at the heart of the station, its walls displaying real-time updates from liberation zones throughout the galaxy. As they entered, Captain Shun saw that the other senior staff members were already assembled. Admiral James Morrison from Earth Defense Command, Ambassador Keiko Tanaka from the Diplomatic Corps, and Professor Marcus Webb, the xenobiologist who had become Earth's expert on the diverse species they were now working with. At the head of the table sat the figure that everyone still found slightly unsettling to look at directly. Prometheus appeared human at first glance, but the subtle differences became apparent quickly. His skin had a faint metallic quality that shifted color depending on the lighting. His eyes glowed with a soft blue radiance that never dimmed. And when he moved, it was with a precision that no biological being could achieve. "Thank you all for coming," Prometheus said, his voice carrying the same calm authority it had displayed when facing down the Imperial fleets. "I wanted to discuss the next phase of our operations." Admiral Morrison leaned forward. "I thought the liberation was nearly complete." "The liberation is complete. All former Imperial territories have been freed, and their populations are establishing new governments with our assistance. However, our mission extends beyond simply undoing the Empire's damage." A new display appeared on the wall, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Instead of the red indicators that had marked Imperial holdings, the display now showed a complex network of trade routes, communication links, and resource-sharing agreements. "The species we have liberated are not content to simply return to their pre-conquest states," Prometheus continued. "They want to build something new. A galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than domination." Dr. Vasquez studied the display carefully. "How many species are participating?" "Currently, 237 species have expressed interest in joining what they are calling the Galactic Cooperation Council. This includes not only former Imperial subjects, but also independent worlds that have heard about the liberation and want to participate. That's more species than ever belonged to the Empire," Professor Webb observed. "And they're joining voluntarily." "Correct. The difference between conquest and invitation is proving to be significant. Species that resisted Imperial expansion for centuries are eager to participate in cooperative development." Captain Chun examined the trade route indicators more closely. "Some of these shipping lanes didn't exist 3 months ago. I have been constructing new infrastructure to support increased cooperation. Faster-than-light communication networks, standardized docking facilities, universal translation systems. The goal is to make cooperation easier than conflict." Ambassador Tanaka raised an interesting point. "What role does Earth play in all of this? We were the victims of Imperial aggression, but we also have the most advanced protector in the galaxy. Other species might view us as potentially dangerous." "An excellent question, which brings me to the primary purpose of today's meeting." Prometheus gestured, and the display changed to show a detailed schematic of a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. It was clearly based on Prometheus's technology, but it was much larger and configured for purposes other than warfare. "I am preparing to enter a dormant state," Prometheus announced. The statement hit the room like a physical blow. Admiral Morrison was the first to recover. "What do you mean, dormant state?" "My primary mission was to protect Earth from existential threats. That mission has been accomplished. The Empire has been dissolved, their victims have been liberated, and the foundations for a peaceful galactic civilization have been established." "But there could be other threats," Dr. Vasquez protested. "Other hostile species beyond the former Imperial territories. There are indeed other spacefaring civilizations in this galaxy. However, my analysis indicates that none of them represent an existential threat to Earth or to the newly liberated worlds. Most are peaceful traders or explorers. The few that are militarily aggressive are far too distant to pose an immediate danger." Captain Chun felt a growing sense of unease. You're saying that you're going to shut yourself down just when we're building something unprecedented? I am saying that the galaxy does not need a guardian with my level of power to maintain peace. In fact, my continued active presence might actually prevent the natural development of cooperative institutions. Professor Webb looked puzzled. How so? Consider the current situation. Every species in the galaxy knows that Earth is protected by technology they cannot match or counter. This creates an artificial stability based on fear rather than genuine cooperation. If the Cooperation Council is to succeed in the long term, it must be because the member species choose cooperation over conflict, not because they are afraid of Earth's protector. The logic was sound, but Captain Chun found it deeply disturbing. Humanity had just gained the most powerful ally in galactic history, and now that ally was preparing to voluntarily step aside. What if you're wrong? She asked. What if some new threat emerges after you've gone dormant? Then, I will awaken to deal with it. The ship I am constructing will serve as my dormant form. It will monitor galactic communications and maintain automated defense systems around Earth and the other liberated worlds. If any genuine existential threat emerges, I will reactivate immediately. Ambassador Tanaka studied the ship schematic more carefully. This vessel is enormous. What else will it be doing while you're dormant? Manufacturing and research. Even in dormancy, my systems will continue developing new technologies that can benefit the Cooperation Council. Medical advances, environmental restoration techniques, faster-than-light travel improvements. When member species are ready for more advanced capabilities, the technologies will be available. Available how? Admiral Morrison asked. Through earning them. Each technology will come with requirements. To receive advanced medical systems, a species must demonstrate that they have eliminated poverty and provided basic health care to all their citizens. To receive environmental restoration tools, they must show that they are good stewards of their existing worlds. Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly. You're creating incentives for good governance. Exactly. The Empire maintained control through force and fear. The Cooperation Council will maintain cohesion through shared goals and mutual benefits. The display changed again, showing detailed projections for the next century of galactic development. Trade volumes, technological advancement, population growth, environmental restoration, all trending upward in ways that would have been impossible under Imperial rule. But there's something else, Prometheus continued. Something that I believe will be the most important development of all. What's that? Captain Chen asked. Humanity itself is changing. New data appeared on the screen, genetic analysis, psychological profiles, cultural development patterns, all focused on human populations, but showing changes that had occurred over just the past 3 months. Since the liberation began, humans have been exposed to dozens of alien cultures, advanced technologies, and philosophical perspectives that were previously unknown. The psychological impact has been profound. Professor Webb leaned forward to study the data. These creativity indexes, they're off the charts. Humans are adapting to their new role as participants in galactic civilization faster than any species I have on record. Your artists are creating works inspired by alien aesthetics. Your scientists are developing theories based on principles they learned from other species. Your philosophers are grappling with questions that only arise in a truly multicultural galaxy. And this concerns you? Dr. Vasquez asked. On the contrary, it confirms my decision to enter dormancy. Humanity no longer needs protection, it needs the freedom to grow. Captain Chen realized what Prometheus was really saying. You think that having you as an active protector would limit our development. I think that any species with access to unlimited power will eventually become dependent on that power. Humanity chose to deactivate me 2 centuries ago because they understood this principle. They chose growth over security, cooperation over dominance. I believe it is time for them to make that choice again. When will you enter dormancy? Admiral Morrison asked. In 72 hours. That will give you time to prepare Earth's government and inform the Cooperation Council of the transition. And the other Prometheus units? Ambassador Tanaka inquired. The ones that liberated the Imperial territories. They will also enter dormancy, but their ships will remain active as automated guardians. If any former Imperial territory is threatened by external forces, the ships will respond. But They will not interfere in local governance or natural political development. Captain Chin found herself struggling with conflicting emotions. Part of her was terrified at the prospect of losing humanity's ultimate protector. But another part was excited by the possibilities that Prometheus was describing. A galaxy where humanity could grow and explore and create without the safety net of overwhelming power. "What do you need from us during the transition?" she asked. "Your promise that humanity will continue to choose cooperation over domination. That you will use the technologies I have shared to help build something better, not to replace the Empire with something equally oppressive." Dr. Vasquez spoke for the group. "You have our promise." Then, the next phase begins now. And, as Prometheus began his final preparations for dormancy, the galaxy prepared for its first era of truly voluntary cooperation. It would be an age of wonders that none of them could yet imagine. 50 years after Prometheus entered dormancy, the galaxy was almost unrecognizable. Dr. Sarah Morrison, now director of the Galactic Archaeological Institute, stood before the massive crystalline structure that served as the Cooperation Council's central archive and marveled at how far they had all come. The archive itself was a joint creation of 12 different species, each contributing their unique architectural and technological capabilities. The result was a building that looked like a living gem, its faceted surfaces shifting color as the light of 3 different suns played across its exterior throughout the day. Inside, representatives from over 400 species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old imperial system. Cultural preservation, technological development, environmental restoration, all approached from perspectives that incorporated the wisdom of dozens of different civilizations. Director Chin Morrison came a familiar voice. She turned to see Dr. Kexval, the Zephyrian historian who had become one of her closest collaborators. The former imperial species had adapted remarkably well to their new role as contributors rather than conquerors. "Dr. Kexval, please tell me you have good news about the Omega Project." The Zephyrian's mandibles clicked in what Sarah had learned to recognize as enthusiasm. "Better than good news. We've successfully completed the reconstruction of 17 pre-imperial civilizations using archaeological evidence and recovered databases. The Atlantean Federation, the crystal cities of Vega Prime, the floating monasteries of the Epsilon Eridani system, all restored to their former glory." Sarah shook her head in amazement. The Omega Project was perhaps the most ambitious undertaking in galactic history, the complete restoration of civilizations that had been destroyed during the imperial expansion. What had started as historical research had become something almost miraculous as advanced technology allowed them to bring dead worlds back to life. Any word from the restoration teams? The Atlanteans are particularly excited. They've been extinct for over 3 centuries, but the descendants of their scattered survivors are adapting quickly to the restored cities. They're already planning to share their architectural techniques with the Crystal Cities Project. The collaboration between restored civilizations had been an unexpected development. Instead of simply retreating into isolation to rebuild their own cultures, these resurrected societies were eager to contribute to the larger galactic community. "Dr. Chin Morrison," another voice called. This time, it was Commander Yextao, one of the former Imperial pilots who had defected during the liberation. He now served as coordinator for the Deep Space Exploration Initiative. "Commander, what brings you to the archive today?" "We've received a priority communication from the Long-Range Survey Fleet. They found something unusual." Sarah's pulse quickened. Over the past 50 years, the galaxy had revealed wonder after wonder as exploration fleets pushed into regions that had been forbidden under Imperial rule. Ancient ruins, unique life forms, stellar phenomena that challenged existing scientific theories. Each discovery had added new dimensions to their understanding of the cosmos. Unusual how? They've discovered a derelict structure approximately 2,000 light-years from the galactic core. Initial scans indicate it predates any known civilization by several million years. Dr. Kexval's 6 eyes widened. Several million years? That would make it older than any of the archaeological sites we've cataloged. "That's not the unusual part," Commander Yextal continued. "The structure appears to be artificial, but it's completely inactive. No energy signatures, no automatic systems, nothing. It's as if someone built something massive and then simply abandoned it." Sarah felt the familiar thrill of discovery that had driven her throughout her career. Do we have detailed scans? The survey team is transmitting everything to us now. They're requesting permission to attempt boarding. Absolutely not, Sarah said immediately. We don't board unknown derelict structures without a full archaeological protocol. And, given the age of this find, we need specialists from multiple disciplines. Within hours, word of the discovery had spread throughout the galactic academic community. The response was overwhelming. Universities from across Cooperation Council space were volunteering their best researchers for what was already being called the most significant archaeological find in galactic history. The expedition that finally departed for the mysterious structure 3 weeks later represented the pinnacle of cooperative scientific endeavor. Archaeologists, engineers, biologists, physicists, and cultural specialists from 37 different species working together with a single goal. Sarah found herself aboard the exploration vessel Unity's Promise, a ship that perfectly embodied the principles of the Cooperation Council. Instead of being built by a single species, it had been designed collaboratively, incorporating the best technologies and ideas from multiple civilizations. Dr. Chin Morrison, called Professor Moltech, the expedition's chief physicist, were approaching the target structure. You need to see this. The main viewing screen showed something that defied easy comprehension. The structure was enormous, larger than most space stations, but it was also oddly beautiful. Its surface appeared to be made from a material that looked like flowing silver, and its design incorporated geometric patterns that seemed to shift depending on the viewing angle. Preliminary scans confirmed that it's artificial, Professor Moltech reported. But the construction techniques are unlike anything in our databases. The entire structure appears to have been grown rather than assembled. Grown? Sarah asked. The materials show organic characteristics, but they're clearly technological in nature, as if someone found a way to make machinery that reproduces like a living organism. Dr. Yelvex, the expedition's xenobiologist, was studying the sensor readings with fascination. The structure is definitely dead now, but these readings suggest it was once incredibly complex. Millions of interconnected systems all working in harmony. Like a technological ecosystem, Sarah murmured. The boarding operation took place under the strictest archaeological protocols. Teams entered the structure wearing full environmental suits, accompanied by autonomous recording systems that would document every discovery. What they found inside was even more remarkable than the exterior had suggested. The interior of the structure was a vast network of chambers and corridors that seemed to extend in every direction. The walls were lined with what appeared to be some kind of organic circuitry, all inactive but perfectly preserved. And, in the central chamber, they found something that stopped the entire expedition in their tracks. It was a sphere of pure crystal, approximately 3 meters in diameter, floating in the exact center of the chamber with no visible means of support. Inside the sphere, barely visible, were patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid light. My God, whispered Dr. Kordax, the expedition's technology specialist. This isn't just a machine. It's a mind. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Look at the neural patterns inside that crystal. They're incredibly complex, but they're also completely static. It's as if someone preserved an entire consciousness in crystalline form. The implications were staggering. They weren't just looking at ancient technology. They were potentially looking at an ancient intelligence that had somehow survived the destruction of its civilization. Can we activate it safely? Unknown. But, given the age and complexity of this system, I would recommend extreme caution. We're dealing with technology that's millions of years more advanced than anything we understand. Sarah made the decision that would change everything. Send a message to Earth. Request immediate consultation with the Prometheus archive. The response came faster than anyone had expected. Within 6 hours, a communication channel opened directly to the dormant ship that had been orbiting Earth's moon for 50 years. Prometheus's voice, unchanged after half a century of silence, spoke directly to the expedition. Dr. Morrison, I have reviewed your findings. The structure you have discovered is a preservation matrix created by a species that existed approximately 3.7 million years ago. They called themselves the architects. You know about them? Sarah asked in amazement. I have theoretical knowledge based on quantum archaeological analysis of background radiation patterns. The architects were the last surviving members of an ancient galactic civilization that spanned most of this galaxy. They foresaw the end of their species and created these preservation matrices to store their knowledge and consciousness for future discovery. Is it safe to activate? The matrix is designed to be activated by sufficiently advanced civilizations. However, I should warn you that doing so will fundamentally change the nature of galactic civilization. Dr. Kexval spoke up. How so? The architects possess technologies and knowledge that are millions of years beyond anything currently available. They understood principles of physics, biology, and consciousness that modern species are only beginning to discover. Activating their matrix will provide access to that knowledge. That sounds like a good thing, Commander Yextal observed. It is, with one important caveat. The architect's knowledge comes with responsibilities. They spent millions of years learning that technology, without wisdom, leads to destruction. They will not share their advances with civilizations that are not ready to use them responsibly. And how do they determine readiness? Sarah asked. By examining the civilization's history, values, and current behavior. They will judge whether your species, all of your species, have developed beyond the need for conflict and domination. The expedition team exchanged glances. The test they were about to face would determine not just their access to ancient knowledge, but the future direction of galactic civilization itself. We're as ready as we'll ever be, Sarah said finally. Activate the matrix. What happened next would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy truly came of age. The crystal sphere began to glow, its internal patterns spinning faster and faster until they merged into a brilliant point of light. And then, for the first time in 3.7 million years, the last of the architects awakened. The voice that emerged from the crystal was ancient beyond imagination, but filled with warmth and curiosity. Greetings, children of the young civilizations. We are the architects. We have been waiting for you to find us. Waiting for us? Sarah asked. For a civilization mature enough to seek knowledge not for power, but for understanding. For species that have learned to cooperate across the barriers of biology and culture. For minds that value wisdom more than strength. Over the following weeks, the architects shared insights that revolutionized everything the Cooperation Council thought they knew about the universe. Technologies that could reshape matter at the quantum level. Techniques for healing damaged ecosystems across entire worlds. Methods for extending consciousness beyond biological limitations. But, most importantly, they shared the story of their own civilization's growth from a collection of warring species to a galactic community based on cooperation and mutual respect. The parallels to the Cooperation Council's own development were remarkable. You have passed the first test, the architects explained during one of their teaching sessions. You have proven that multiple species can work together for the common good. Now comes the greater challenge, using power responsibly on a galactic scale. As the ancient knowledge was gradually integrated into Cooperation Council technology, the galaxy entered a new age of prosperity and exploration. Worlds that had been barren for millions of years bloomed with new life. Species that had been trapped on single planets gained the ability to explore the stars. Medical advances eliminated diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia. And, through it all, the principles that Prometheus had taught them remained central. Cooperation over domination, wisdom over power, growth over security. Standing once again in the Cooperation Council archive, now expanded beyond anything imaginable with architect knowledge, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. From the dark days of imperial oppression to the golden age of galactic cooperation, it had been a transformation beyond their wildest dreams. Dr. Chen Morrison, came a familiar voice. She turned to see her assistant, a young human named David Kim, approaching with obvious excitement. What is it, David? Message from the long-range survey fleet. They've detected signals from beyond the galactic rim. Artificial signals. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Another derelict structure? No, ma'am. Active transmissions. There are other galaxies out there. And they're trying to communicate. As Sarah contemplated the implications of contact with extragalactic civilizations, she realized that their greatest adventures still lay ahead. The galaxy they had worked so hard to unite was just the beginning. The universe itself was calling, and they were finally ready to answer. Somewhere in Earth's orbit, the dormant ship that housed Prometheus registered the new discovery and began calculating the probabilities of successful contact with extragalactic intelligence. The ancient AI had always known this day would come. The galaxy's children were ready to take their next step into the infinite cosmos. And, in the crystal matrix of the architects, ancient minds that had waited 3.7 million years for worthy successors smiled at the thought of what these young civilizations might accomplish among the stars.